Most people would laugh at the idea of being arrested for gardening. After all, how much harm could a plant possibly cause? But hidden behind backyard fences, decorative flower beds, and even along quiet roadsides are plants that can bring serious legal consequences, often without any warning at all. Plant laws differ from country to country, and even from state to state, but one rule is universal. Not knowing the law won't protect you. Some of these plants were once completely legal. Others were used as medicine, grown as ornamentals, or spread naturally as weeds. And one of them could already be growing in your yard right now, silently putting you at risk. Here are 10 plants you could be arrested for growing. 1. Opium poppy. At first glance, the opium poppy seems harmless, even mesmerizing. Its delicate, paper-thin petals glow in soft shades of white, pink, purple, and red, gently swaying in the breeze. Many gardeners plant poppies purely for their beauty, unaware that this particular species carries one of the darkest legal histories of any plant on Earth. Papaver somniferum is not just a flower. It is the natural source of opium, the raw material used to produce morphine, codeine, and heroin. Inside its seed pods is a milky latex filled with powerful alkaloids that have fueled addiction, reshaped global politics, and led to some of the strictest drug laws ever written. Here's the shocking part. Your intentions don't matter. In many countries, growing opium poppies is illegal, even if you never touch the pods, never harvest anything, and never knew what the plant truly was. Simply having live plants in your garden can result in fines, confiscation, or criminal charges. What confuses many gardeners is that opium poppy seeds are often sold legally. They're common in baking, sprinkled on bread, or marketed as ornamental seeds. But the moment those seeds sprout and mature, the legal situation can change instantly. A flower bed that looks innocent to you may look like a controlled drug source to authorities. In some regions, possessing opium poppy plants is treated no differently than possessing illegal narcotics. Law enforcement can destroy the plants, question the grower, and in extreme cases, pursue prosecution, even if the flowers were planted purely for decoration. Historically, the opium poppy has lived a double life. Ancient cultures revered it as a pain reliever and sleep aid. Modern medicine transformed it into essential pharmaceuticals. At the same time, it became one of the most destructive substances known to humanity. Because of that, many governments adopted zero-tolerance policies. The cruel irony? A flower associated with peace, remembrance, and beauty can quietly turn a peaceful backyard into a legal nightmare. 2. Coca plant. The coca plant doesn't look dangerous at all. In fact, it's rather unassuming. A small shrub with smooth green leaves and tiny pale flowers. But legally, it is one of the most tightly controlled plants in the world. Erythroxylum coca is the natural source of cocaine, and that connection alone makes it illegal to grow in most countries outside South America. International drug treaties classify the plant itself as a controlled substance, not just the processed drug made from it. For thousands of years, indigenous Andean cultures have used coca leaves safely and responsibly. They chew the leaves to fight fatigue, brew them into tea to aid digestion, and rely on them to survive high altitudes. In these regions, coca is sacred, a symbol of endurance, culture, and tradition. But once you step outside that cultural context, the rules become brutally strict. In many countries, growing a coca plant, even as a houseplant or botanical curiosity, is a serious crime. Importing coca seeds, attempting to germinate them, or simply possessing a living plant can be enough to trigger legal action. There is no safe gray area for hobby growers. Authorities typically don't care whether the plant is grown for education, research, or decoration. The logic is simple. If the plant can be used to produce an illegal drug, the plant itself is illegal. In some cases, people have faced investigations simply for ordering coca seeds online. Customs officials regularly seize shipments, and because coca plants grow slowly and look harmless, many people underestimate the risk. But legally, even a single potted plant can be treated as evidence. The coca plant perfectly illustrates the clash between ancient tradition and modern law. What is honored as cultural heritage in one part of the world is considered criminal contraband in another. And that's what makes coca so dangerous to grow. Not its appearance, but the legal weight it carries. Peyote. Peyote may be one of the smallest plants you'll ever encounter, but legally it carries massive consequences. At first glance, it appears completely harmless. A short, rounded cactus with no spines, often no larger than a golf ball, quietly blending into desert terrain. Many people mistake it for an ordinary ornamental succulent. For some, that assumption has led to devastating outcomes. Peyote contains mescaline, a potent naturally occurring psychedelic compound. For thousands of years, Native American tribes have used peyote in sacred ceremonies, viewing it not as a drug but as a spiritual guide, a form of medicine, and a connection to the divine. Because of this deep cultural significance, very narrow legal exemptions exist, but only for specific indigenous groups and only under strict, tightly controlled conditions. Outside of those limited protections, peyote is illegal in many countries and regions. Growing it, owning it, buying it, or selling it can all be considered criminal acts. And once again, intent is irrelevant. You don't need to consume the plant. You don't need to harvest anything. Simply possessing a single living peyote cactus may legally be treated the same as possessing a controlled substance. What makes peyote especially risky is its popularity among cactus collectors. Some people purchase it online, at rare plant expos or through private collectors, believing it's just an unusual or exotic cactus. Law enforcement sees it very differently. There are documented cases of individuals being fined, arrested, or charged simply for keeping one peyote plant on a windowsill. The situation becomes even more serious because peyote grows extremely slowly. In natural conditions, it can take 10 to 30 years to reach maturity. Due to habitat loss and illegal harvesting, peyote is considered endangered in many regions. As a result, unauthorized possession or cultivation may be treated not only as a drug offense but also as a violation of conservation and wildlife protection laws. To authorities, peyote triggers multiple red flags at once: a controlled psychoactive substance, a protected species, and a plant with deep cultural sensitivity. That combination leaves almost no room for leniency. A cactus small enough to fit in the palm of your hand can quietly place you on the wrong side of the law. 4. Tobacco. Tobacco is one of the most contradictory plants humans have ever grown. It is legal, widely available, and socially normalized in its processed form. Yet in many parts of the world, growing tobacco at home is illegal or tightly restricted. At first glance, tobacco doesn't raise suspicion. It has large, soft green leaves and delicate trumpet-shaped flowers in pale pink or white. To an untrained eye, it can easily be mistaken for an ornamental garden plant. But behind that ordinary appearance lies a crop that governments have regulated and controlled for centuries. The primary reason is taxation. Tobacco is among the most heavily taxed agricultural products on Earth. When individuals grow their own tobacco, they bypass licensing systems, excise taxes, and regulatory oversight. And that's where legal trouble begins. In many regions, cultivating tobacco without proper permits is considered illegal agricultural production, even if it's grown only for personal use and never sold. Some countries allow limited home cultivation, but only under strict conditions. Plants may need to be registered, crops may be subject to inspection, and processing steps such as drying, curing, or fermenting the leaves without authorization can escalate a minor infraction into a criminal offense. There are real cases where home growers have faced fines, plant seizures, and prosecution. Historically, tobacco was once revered. Indigenous peoples of the Americas used it in rituals, healing practices, and spiritual ceremonies long before it became a global commodity. When Europeans encountered tobacco, its spread was rapid, driven not only by addiction, but by its symbolic and economic power. Governments quickly recognized its value and moved to control every stage of its production. That control never vanished. Today, tobacco is treated less like a plant and more like a regulated substance. You can legally purchase cigarettes almost anywhere. Yet growing the same leaves in your backyard may violate tax, agricultural, or licensing laws depending on where you live. There's also a health concern many people overlook: nicotine toxicity. Nicotine is a powerful natural insecticide. Handling large quantities of fresh tobacco leaves without protection can cause green tobacco sickness, a form of nicotine poisoning absorbed through the skin. Because of this, some regions restrict tobacco cultivation in residential areas on safety grounds. Environmentally, tobacco is demanding. It rapidly depletes soil nutrients, requires careful curing, and can generate waste that contaminates groundwater if mishandled. In areas with strict environmental regulations, this adds another layer of legal scrutiny. Tobacco exists in a strange legal gray zone, fully accepted and profitable when controlled by corporations, yet suspicious and restricted when grown by individuals. It's a clear reminder that legality isn't always about danger or morality. Sometimes it's about control. And that's what makes tobacco one of the quietest examples of a plant that can turn an innocent garden into a legal liability. 5. Jimsonweed. Jimsonweed, more commonly known as datura, devil's trumpet, or thorn apple, is one of the most disturbing plants a person can encounter. Its danger isn't limited to legal consequences. Biologically, it is one of the most hazardous plants in the natural world. Unlike many plants that hide their threat behind beauty or rarity, datura is dangerous from root to flower. Every single part of the plant is poisonous. The leaves, seeds, stems, flowers, and roots all contain tropane alkaloids, extremely powerful chemicals that cause severe hallucinations, confusion, memory blackout, and total loss of coordination. Datura doesn't produce dreamlike visions. It creates a false reality that feels completely real. People under its influence often hold conversations with imaginary people, walk into traffic, or attempt dangerous actions believing nothing is wrong. This is why datura has such a grim reputation throughout history. It has been associated with poisonings, occult rituals, and reckless experimentation that frequently ends in emergency hospitalization or death. Even today, hospitals around the world treat datura poisoning cases every year, often involving accidental ingestion or misuse. From a legal standpoint, Jimsonweed exists in a dangerous gray area. In some regions, it grows wild and isn't specifically listed as illegal. However, intentionally growing it can cross a legal threshold. Authorities may classify its cultivation as reckless endangerment, particularly if the plant is accessible to children, animals, or the public. In certain jurisdictions, datura is regulated not as a drug, but as a public safety hazard. This allows officials to confiscate and destroy the plants, issue fines, or press charges without needing to prove intent. Simply having datura in your garden can be enough to trigger legal action. What makes Jimsonweed especially risky is how aggressively it spreads. A single plant can produce thousands of seeds that remain viable in soil for many years. Gardeners often discover it growing unexpectedly, unaware of its identity, until neighbors complain or authorities step in. Unlike many toxic plants, datura has no safe dose. The margin between an effect and a fatal outcome is razor thin. That alone has made it a legal red flag plant, monitored and discouraged even in places where it hasn't been fully outlawed. Jimsonweed is not a novelty. It is not a harmless wildflower. And legally, growing it can be interpreted as knowingly introducing serious danger into your community. 6. Japanese knotweed. Japanese knotweed is the plant most likely to already be growing on your property. Silently, relentlessly, and illegally. Unlike many plants on this list, you don't have to plant it yourself to face consequences. Simply owning land where it exists can put you at legal risk. At first glance, Japanese knotweed appears unremarkable. Tall bamboo-like stems, broad heart-shaped leaves, rapid growth. Some people even mistake it for an exotic ornamental. But beneath the soil, it behaves more like a biological wrecking machine. Its underground root system, known as rhizomes, can extend several meters in all directions. These roots can force their way through concrete, asphalt, foundations, drainage systems, and brickwork. Knotweed has cracked walls, destroyed roads, flooded pipes, and rendered properties uninhabitable. In some cases, entire homes have lost value or become impossible to insure because of its presence. This level of destruction is why the law treats Japanese knotweed with extreme severity. In places like the UK and parts of Europe, it is illegal to plant, sell, transport, or knowingly allow knotweed to spread. Property owners are legally responsible for controlling it. Ignoring the problem isn't an option. Failure to manage knotweed on your land can result in fines, civil lawsuits, or even criminal charges. What shocks most homeowners is this reality. You don't need malicious intent. If knotweed spreads from your yard into a neighboring property, you can be held liable. If it grows near a property boundary, real estate deals can collapse. If inspectors find it during a sale, mortgage lenders may refuse financing altogether. Even disposal is legally restricted. Cutting knotweed and dumping it as garden waste can result in penalties because fragments smaller than a fingernail can regenerate into a full infestation. Japanese knotweed doesn't look threatening. It doesn't warn you. But once it's officially identified, it can turn into a legal nightmare that lasts for years. This isn't a weed you simply pull out. It's a problem you inherit. 7. Giant hogweed. Giant hogweed looks almost magical at first glance. Towering stems, massive, umbrella-like white flower heads. It rises above surrounding plants like something from a fantasy storybook. Many people confuse it with wild parsnip, cow parsley, or an oversized ornamental. That single mistake can send someone straight to the emergency room. Giant hogweed produces a highly toxic sap that becomes extremely dangerous when exposed to sunlight. If the sap touches bare skin and UV rays hit it, the reaction causes severe chemical burns, painful blistering, and deep tissue damage. Scarring can last for years, and if the sap reaches the eyes, it can result in permanent blindness. Children are at particular risk because of the plant's height and hollow stems. Pets are vulnerable as well, brushing against it unknowingly. Because of these extreme health dangers and its ability to completely overrun native ecosystems, giant hogweed is classified as a restricted or prohibited invasive species in many parts of the world. Growing it is illegal, letting it spread is illegal, and once it's identified, failing to act can trigger legal enforcement. Property owners have faced fines, court action, and mandatory removal orders simply for not responding quickly enough. What makes giant hogweed especially dangerous from a legal standpoint is how often it's misidentified. Many homeowners don't realize what they're dealing with until someone is burned, sometimes seriously. Once authorities confirm the plant's identity, claiming ignorance offers no protection. Removal is also risky. Cutting the plant without full protective gear can cause injury. Burning it is prohibited in many regions. In most cases, professional eradication is required, and the cost can be substantial. In some areas, reporting giant hogweed is mandatory. If it's discovered near schools, playgrounds, or public walkways, authorities often respond immediately and aggressively. This plant turns sunlight into a weapon, and the law treats it exactly that way. Giant hogweed isn't just invasive, it's officially recognized as a public health threat growing in plain sight. 8. Kratom may be the most legally unpredictable plant in the world. And that uncertainty is what makes it so dangerous to grow. Native to Southeast Asia, kratom is a tropical tree whose leaves have been used for generations by farmers, laborers, and traditional healers. In low doses, the leaves act as a stimulant, increasing alertness and endurance. In higher doses, they produce sedative and opioid-like effects. That dual action has placed kratom in a constantly shifting legal category. In some countries and U.S. states, kratom is fully illegal. Growing it, possessing it, or selling it can lead to criminal charges. In other regions, possession may be legal while cultivation is not. And in certain places, kratom was legal when planted, but outlawed by the time it matured. That legal timing has destroyed lives. Unlike herbs, kratom is a tree. It takes years to grow. Laws, however, can change overnight. There are real cases of people being charged for trees they planted legally, only to face arrest after regulations changed. What makes kratom especially risky is its visibility. A mature kratom tree is tall, distinctive, and hard to conceal. Neighbors notice it. Seed shipments get flagged. Online purchases leave records. Once authorities identify the plant, intent becomes irrelevant. Medical reasons won't protect you. Cultural tradition won't protect you. Not knowing the law won't protect you. Kratom exists at the crossroads of botany, medicine, and politics, and that crossroads is unstable. Growing it means gambling your freedom on lawmakers remaining consistent. History shows they rarely do. 9. Water. Hyacinth. Water hyacinth may look calm, harmless, even elegant, but it is one of the most destructive plants you can legally own by mistake. Floating gently across the surface of ponds and lakes, its glossy green leaves and soft purple blooms make it look like the perfect addition to a decorative water feature. Many people buy it without realizing they're introducing an ecological time bomb. Water hyacinth multiplies at a terrifying speed. In warm, nutrient-rich water, its population can double in less than 2 weeks. What starts as a single plant can quickly blanket entire waterways. Sunlight disappears, oxygen levels crash, fish suffocate, native plants are wiped out. That level of environmental damage is why water hyacinth is treated as illegal or highly restricted in many parts of the world. Selling it is banned. Owning it is prohibited. Transporting it can be a crime. In some regions, simply possessing one plant, even with no harmful intent, is enough to result in fines or legal action. Many gardeners get caught unintentionally. A backyard pond overflows during heavy rain. A small fragment escapes into a ditch or storm drain. That's all it takes. Once the plant establishes itself in natural waterways, investigators often trace the infestation back to its original source. And yes, people have faced serious penalties because of it. Water hyacinth doesn't sting. It doesn't poison. It doesn't injure on contact. It destroys ecosystems silently until enforcement shows up. This is not a plant the law overlooks, and it's not one it forgives. 10. Henbane. Henbane's reputation predates modern laws, and that dark history is exactly why it remains under suspicion today. For centuries, henbane was used in ancient medicine, medieval surgery, and dangerous ritual practices. It contains potent alkaloids like hyoscyamine and scopolamine, compounds known to cause severe hallucinations, delirium, memory loss, paralysis, and even death, sometimes in surprisingly small amounts. Unlike many poisonous plants, henbane wasn't merely stumbled upon. It was intentionally cultivated, and it was intentionally abused. That legacy has never faded. In many regions, henbane is classified as a restricted or controlled species. Growing it for historical interest, research, or herbal curiosity can be treated no differently than cultivating an illicit psychoactive plant. Even possessing seeds may attract scrutiny. A mature plant can prompt inspections or investigations. What makes henbane especially risky from a legal standpoint is assumption of intent. Authorities often presume misuse first and education second. Its long association with poisons, witches' brews, and mind-altering substances has permanently marked it as a red flag species. Even professional botanical collections are often required to follow strict display and documentation rules. Henbane doesn't appear dangerous, it doesn't announce itself, but the law remembers exactly what it has been used for, and it hasn't forgotten.